This podcast is rated S for spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Don't forget to view our spoiler-free companion video on our Half Past Podcast channel on YouTube. Half Past Podcast. This is episode 47, the movie review of Star Trek Beyond. We will also be discussing the Star Wars Rogue One trailer. I'm Graham Ricks, and here with me is my friend and co-pilot Ian Jones.
I love that we're getting a Star Wars every December from now on.
Yeah, isn't that just great? I just love it.
Get my nerd on.
Awesome. We also have our guest back here again, Mr. Levy.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Good.
How's it going, Mark?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, you get to come in here and have a little bit of nerd moments and everything with us here for a little while.
That's what I do.
All right, so let's get started. So the trailer for this week is the Star Wars Rogue One trailer. And the thing that I want to say that is this is closer to a Star Wars movie that I've been wanting to see, because we've been following, like, the Skywalkers basically through everything. And this one is actually just this side movie and this side story that I kind of want to watch. And everything looks great, and I know I'm going to get at least one awesome fight scene because Donnie Yen's in there.
Yes.
Who is just fantastic. I just love Donnie Yen.
He's the blind Force user or something close to it.
Yep.
He's a Jedi sympathizer, it looks like.
That seems like such an interesting type of like plot device or whatever story for this character. So it'll be interesting to see him, and the fact that he's blind is just like, what? Let's do it. I'm excited.
One interesting thing that I found out the other day is Forrest Whitaker's character is actually a character that appeared, I believe, in the Clone Wars series. I don't know if it was Star Wars Rebels or Star Wars, the Clone Wars animated thing, but I barely remember much about the character, but kind of neat that they're, tying that in.
Yeah, it's one of George Lucas's characters, Saw, is coming back. And so, just from the looks of it, things have not gone well.
No.
For him and his king. I think the whole thing's really cool. I find it incredibly interesting that people are already starting to ship pairings for this movie, and everyone could just be dead at the end of it. I mean, right? Wasn't that? So I find that hilarious, and that's already happening, and I feel like I'm.
They're not boffins. They may very well survive this.
Okay, right. But then they're
die
just
so
they're
much
just,
in the series.
Yes, they just are MIA though.
Yeah, right.
And, because it's like right there.
Yep.
Like that Luke and Leia are around 19 or so, and it's just before.
Yep.
It's within 1 or 2 years before A New Hope.
Yep.
Right.
It'll be
I don't know. It makes me smile that people are already starting to dive into these characters, and the movie hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, that just happens sometimes.
I like that. Yeah,
it's Star Wars. Everyone,
I know, it's great. I'll tell you. I also like too that there's like a bunch of new. Like the visuals are new. Like everything looks like it belongs in the universe, but visually, there's a lot of new things to look at. There's new stormtroopers. There's going to be new weapons.
There's also new environments.
Yes,
as it looks like
correct.
Also, which is good.
Yeah. So,
but
I'm
then
excited.
at the same time, you see some of that footage from like on the Death Star, and you're like, that's it. That's the same bridge, where you see Tarkin and Leia, and I'm like, oh, it just everything I see about this movie just gets me so excited.
Yeah, it's everything is just great, and I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be awesome, and I hope it is. So I'm just super excited about seeing this movie. Anything else for this trailer?
Not for me.
No, I think I'm good.
All right, I will go ahead. I guess we'll just take a break, and then we'll go ahead and get into Star Trek Beyond. The USS Enterprise crew explores the furthest reaches of uncharted space, where they encounter a new ruthless enemy who puts them and everything in the Federation stands for to the test. That was not bad.
Good job.
Every once in a while I have really terrible reads, but that one was okay. This movie's directed by Justin Lin, who also did Annapolis and of course the Fast and the Furious, like Tokyo Drift all the way to the 6th movie. So he's been doing Fast and the Furious for a very long time, which is why this movie got a lot of heat early on. He's also, and I learned about this like about a week ago, but I guess he's the one that they're planning on using for Space Jam with LeBron James. He's the one helming that one. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, well, we talked about it. LeBron James was pretty good in that Trainwrecked movie.
A lot of people liked him. I haven't seen it, but a lot of people have liked him in that movie. So
I think if they tee him up the same way,
you think it might work out?
Yeah. I mean, he got all the funny lines in the movie, and he hit
crazy.
them perfectly.
Nice. He has been doing more acting. He's even just been in, like, actual commercials where he's doing things as opposed to just being a basketball player. So it's kind of weird to see him do that. So I'm sure I'll see this Space Jam movie when it comes out, as ridiculous as that sounds.
What do you mean ridiculous?
This movie starring Chris Pine, of course, as Captain James T. Kirk. He was in Smoking Aces, This Means War, and Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit. Zachary Quinto as Commander Spock. It is Quinto, right?
Quinto.
Quinto? Is it Quinto?
Yeah.
Okay, Zachary Quinto as Commander Spock. He was in Heroes, American Horror Story Asylum, and, of course, The Slap. Has everybody seen The Slap?
I did not.
I watched the first episode of that, and then I gave up on it.
Did you?
Yeah, I was just like, I can't deal with this. Like I thought it was justifiable in slapping that kid, and it like turns into this whole thing. Like the kid was being a jackass, and it's because of the way the parents were raising him. But it was like this huge social issue, and I was just like, no, pass, forget it. I've had enough of this after one episode.
Oh,
I don't need to
terrible.
see a mom breastfeeding an 8-year-old boy. That doesn't need to happen.
Oh, man. Carl Urban as Dr. Bones McCoy. He played Cupid in Xena Warrior Princess and Hercules the Legendary Journeys.
Oh my goodness.
Roll flashback.
Whoa.
Yeah, I had to mention that.
That's Into the Well.
Almost Human, that TV series. And
like
of
that
course, Dread. Freaking Dread,
Thank
man.
you for getting to Dread, man.
Dread
I was
is
gonna slap you.
so good. And it has been battling to get a sequel for this. The last time I've been keeping up on this because I've been wanting a Dread sequel since it came out. And I've been keeping up on this, and so like they keep announcing different things. So they're like, okay, we're making the sequel. Oh wait, we can't make it. Like it's not a good sell because it undersold in the box office. It like barely made its budget back afterwards. And the thing is it's had so much success on like Netflix and everything. So now they're thinking about doing it via a streaming service. So they're trying to see if they can't get Dread out via a sequel in Netflix or a television series on Netflix.
And I hope they keep casting the villains as different bastards from Game of Thrones.
That would be fantastic. It's just so... I've been wanting a continuation of that character from this movie. It was like, I don't know, the marketing for that movie, for Dread, was atrocious. And it's a shame because the movie's really good. And it's just so disappointing.
I think it was dead in the water anyway because of the first one.
Yeah,
that they
right?
did.
And this one, and it's not even fair because this one's so much better than the Sly Stallone one.
Yeah.
It is.
It's significantly better. Everybody watch Dread and support it, please. I want to get a continuation of that story.
By support it, you mean buy it, because that's the only, at this point, that's the only way to support it.
It's the only way. Zoe Saldana as Lieutenant Uhura. She was in Avatar, Columbiana, and of course Guardians of the Galaxy. So she's had some pretty successful little movies there. Simon Pegg as Montgomery Scotty Scott. He's basically most known for the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy with like Hot Fuzz and The World's End and all that other stuff. He was also in the past 3 Mission Impossible movies, that character. And I guess he might be in another one, because I guess they're making a 6th movie, which is crazy to think about. But the last one was really good. I really enjoyed Rogue Nation. John Cho as Sulu. He was in Better Luck Tomorrow, which is also one of Justin Lin's movies. That was his debut. Harold and Kumar, and he was also in that TV series Flash Forward. Anton Yelchin as Chekhov. He was in Alpha Dog and, of course, Terminator Salvation, who had died recently, which is really unfortunate because they are doing another Star Trek movie, and I guess they're not going to, from what I heard, they're not going to replace him.
No.
So I'm not.
I think that's the right call.
I think it's the right call also. I'm just not sure how they're going to justify, like Chekhov not being there.
Well, he wasn't in all 3 original series seasons. He wasn't in the first season at all. I think he showed up for season 2 and 3. Not that should have any bearing. It's just I'd rather his portrayal of that character be all that there is.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I really enjoy that that's their choice. Hollywood's been known for just replacing actors even when they die. And I guess I really prefer that they just let it go. I'm just curious, are they just going to not acknowledge it at all, or is he just not going to be there? I don't know what they're going to do with him, but it'll be interesting. Idris Elba as Crawl, who Idris Elba is starting to turn into Samuel L. Jackson. Like he has been in so many movies in the past few years. It's absolutely ridiculous. So he was in Zootopia, The Jungle Book, and Finding Dory, which is all just voice acting, but those are all released this year. So
who was
when did he
in the
have
Jungle
time?
Book?
He was Shere Khan.
I never saw it, so
he's the villain.
Yeah, he was the villain, and he does great villains. He's just great.
Yeah.
He's just great with them, and so it's just so crazy. I don't know where he's finding the time to get all these roles done, because even last year he was in a ton of movies, and it looks like the future movies he's going to do, he's just going to be in a ton too for next year. So he's just super busy, and he's just showing up everywhere. It's so crazy.
He's been in movies I don't like, but I have always liked him in any movie I've seen him in.
That works. That definitely works. I can understand that.
That's his curse, I think.
You think?
Yeah, I do.
I'm looking at you, Prometheus.
We were all thinking the same thing.
We were trying to avoid bashing Prometheus because we've bashed it a lot in this podcast as it is. But let's go ahead and bash it some more.
Sure.
That movie is awful.
Sucks. It sucks. It's great in such a sucky way, and it could have been amazing. It could have been a contender, and it just falls flat.
It's just bad. There's just so many issues with that movie.
Just don't run in a straight line. I feel like that would have solved 90% of them.
Oh, it's terrible. The last one we have up here is Sophia Boutella as Jayla. I'm pretty sure that's Boutella. Anybody got to try to...
Nope.
It's good enough for me.
Okay.
Close enough.
She was in Monsters, Dark Continent, Kingsman, The Secret Service, and again, I read an article, and Universal has been doing these, they're rebooting, all the old movies. And so she is going to be in the Mummy reboot, which I feel weird about, because it's a reboot to the one that was from the 90s and the 2000s, which is not that long ago.
But is this new one supposed to be, in a contemporary setting, not a dated piece?
Yes, I believe it is. I'm not entirely sure because I haven't read as much on it as I would like. But I just thought it was interesting that Universal has decided to do all their old movies. So like they're going to do like the Wolfman, and they're going to do like a Van Helsing movie, and Creature from the Black Lagoon, and Frankenstein. Like they're doing all these different old movies, and so I think it's going to be interesting because that's kind of a genre that's been dead for quite a while.
But if I recall, they're not only rebooting them, they're pulling a shared universe angle with it.
Yeah, right? It's going to be the universal, like, monsters cinematic universe. Like, they're doing a whole thing, which is turning into a thing. I guess Marvel has got to the point where everybody's doing this now.
Yep.
Because the other thing that was weird is they're doing, what was it, the Warner Brothers and the Hanna-Barbera
right.
universe. They're doing that Hanna-Barbera universe also. And, like, Warner Brothers is taking on the animation for that. So I thought that was weird, too. Like, everybody's doing these shared universe things.
I'm keeping
weird.
my fingers crossed that this leads to a Monster Squad remake.
Oh, that would be very interesting. God, jeez, man. Oh, all right. So we're finished with the characters, so let's take another quick break, and then we're going to get into the actual quirks and likes here. All right, guys, now we're back for our quirks and likes section. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm not going to say anything for the quirks, and I'm going to let you guys go. And let's just get started with, let's start with you, Jones.
Okay, I think a big issue for me is that the bad guys, like, I knew the entire time that she's not listed on here, but I knew that the girl was a double agent.
Yes.
You know, I knew that they were human somehow. I knew from the trailers.
Okay.
So it just wasn't so that was all confirmed to me the second that they looked at the video footage for the first time that these were somehow human. So I wasn't really that impressed with the bad guys once we started to get to know them.
I don't think they're all human. I think he is. But there's thousands and thousands of enemies, and there aren't enough people on that ship.
There's three.
Yeah,
there's three main ones, and then a bunch of drones.
Okay, that's what I meant. So it's the
and
girl.
He specifically said, Idris Elba specifically says in the video that only 3 remaining, including himself.
Okay, no, I remember that.
Yeah, so that's that's what he was talking about.
Here's where I have an issue. Here's where my main issue is. That they have their ship breaks, but they have the ability to get off the planet with the drones.
Yes.
So I don't understand why they didn't just go home in the drones. like that never gets explained.
But I agree with you. It's very their backstories, as they eventually explain it, but not enough. Because by the time maybe they get control of the drones and all that, we don't know how much time's passed, what's been done to them before they're even in that position.
Yeah, they don't really explain that much. You definitely know that they've been there for a very long time, and that they've been figuring out a way to keep themselves alive by sucking the life out of people, basically.
Very strange.
Which is very strange, and the thing that I think is the strangest about it is just the motive for all of this just seems extreme for what happened to them, in my opinion. Yeah. I think that's my biggest issue with the whole thing. It's just like, wow, you went from they don't care about us, so let's destroy the entire Federation, which is just like, what? That just seems so weird to have that much of a jump.
Did this not seem like an incredibly inefficient weapon?
The weapon to me made no sense at all because it's really small. I don't get it. It just doesn't have the presence to it. And then when he finally activates it, it's kind of just sits there in a blob and doesn't do anything.
In such a unique situation for how they needed to spread it, I'm like, where else in the galaxy would that exist? If you were just on a planet, what would it do?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it definitely doesn't have like the whole Death Star kind of feeling to it. Like, it would be one thing if bits of this weapon was in that swarm, because the swarm is really devastating.
It is.
Yeah.
And really scary, and yet that's not the thing that they start freaking out over. It's
what
this
weapon do
little
you need?
tiny
in addition?
weapon,
Right?
know.
The swarm is extremely terrifying, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed at how the swarm moved and how it was able to just, like, this has their drones, it just doesn't matter. In the shapes of the ships, they just crash into crap. They don't, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, nothing matters. So it's just such a cool concept for, like, a way to control a bunch of people. So it's pretty interesting.
So I think those are the weapon and the bad guys were the two real issues I had.
Yeah.
Because I think they just don't go into either of those things enough to where it really makes sense for me.
Okay.
So I will say that Kirk absolutely signed that ensign's death sentence when he asked her for that favor to hide the device in her head. She was just going to die at that point, and I was just waiting for when. And I absolutely forgot about that character. And then the second she shows up in the prison and like speaks up, I'm like,
oh, she's dead.
Yeah. There's one question I have. It dawned on me with her character, but it ties a lot back into like the original series from back in the 60s. Is like you've got your core senior officers, all the characters that get named, and then you have the crew, and it's like the crew doesn't measure up to what we know Starfleet officers should be. Your senior officers all live up and are like the shining examples of morality and all that. And then you get the crew, and they're the ones that are xenophobic sometimes, and they're first to crack under pressure. It's like, I always have a tough time knowing, like, what is the rest of society like? Because she caved like that.
The cream rises to the top, right? Yeah. But yeah, that's a good point. If there's ever an issue, it is always with someone who can be replaced that week.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Uhura, this drove me nuts. There's actually two things with Uhura and Jayla.
Okay.
Which I think this is sort of an issue with having like an ensemble cast and not having enough for everyone to do.
Yeah.
Uhura she sacrifices herself, if you can even call it that, to get Kirk away from the bad guy.
Away. Yep.
And then she's getting interrogated, and then they just let her go. She's just walking, and she runs into crew members.
Made no sense.
Like, Wait a minute,
made
what?
No sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay. And so along that line, towards the end, Scotty tells Jayla that he needs her to be his eyes. Yeah. There's like that specific line, and then nothing happens with her. She doesn't go and do anything. Like, what did she go and do to where she didn't go to help Kirk? So I just, like, that, like, burned into my retina. And I was just like, oh, remember this for later. He told her to do something, and then nothing happened with it.
I'm curious.
Like, she just stood there.
I'm curious when there's situations like that happening. I'm always curious whether there is like, scenes that are, like, cut from the movie.
So
and
that right.
The thing is, like, when I first looked at how long this movie was, I was instantly concerned about them cutting something because it was 2 hours and 2 minutes long, which is a really bizarre number for that. It seems like somebody came in and said, this movie needs to get down to 2 hours. And they got as close as they could. Like, that's what it felt like to me when I was looking at how long this movie was. So I felt like there was probably stuff that was just cut because of the studio asking for them to cut it. And I just feel like that's what happened in this movie. And this is just me completely speculating entirely. But it's just, I don't know what it was about the 2 hours and 2 minutes long. And I'm like, what? What movie is 2 hours and 2 minutes long? It seems like they were trying to get down to 2 hours. And then just like, we can't cut anything else. This is it. We have to keep everything in and we're not cutting another 2 minutes. And that's just how it was. That's just how I felt about it. But so I wouldn't be surprised if there's like deleted scenes where she actually does do something, which is possible.
All right. The last thing, and this is a real nitpicky thing, but when they go into the escape pods, they come out of these escape pods and they're just wearing different clothes altogether. Like, and no one ever addresses. Yes,
yeah. There's a big assumption that there's stuff in each escape pod that fits them
too.
But I mean,
perfectly.
Here's the thing. There's something about everybody in Starfleet looks like they're about the same size anyway.
Okay, I kind of agree.
There's one guy that they have, the first fat guy I've ever seen in Star Trek. It's like there's so many time periods. Like there's definitely been some overweight guys like in Star Trek before, but this guy was like clearly just like an overweight that they had to get a bigger uniform for this dude. And he's like in the comms like at the what's the space station called?
Oh, you're talking about that one actor.
That one,
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams puts him in
Grunberg or something.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams puts him in everything.
Right, and so like he's in there, and it's like he's the one guy. When you look at the rest, like if you look at all the crew of the Enterprise, they're all like the same size and the same body shape. Clearly, Starfleet has some sort of athletic program that like everybody's exactly the same.
Well, that's why he doesn't get to go on a ship. They put him on a station.
Exactly.
There's no way he's going to fit in a Jeffries tube to go and fix something.
But to end that argument, you've all seen the beginning of Back to the Future 2. You just don't see the button that resizes the clothes to the user.
Yeah.
That works.
I will say, I really thought those, like, I don't know what you call them, but the jumpsuits that they turned into, I thought those were badass. Like I thought they looked really cool. So,
yeah, they did look
all right,
cool.
That's it for me as far as quirks.
I think honestly it was like in the first movie though, when Kirk was marooned on the ice planet, it's just the pods have environmental gear.
Yeah, that's what my assumption was, and it is an assumption. Like there isn't a scene where they're like getting stuff out of it. There's a scene where I believe Bones gets something out of it, and then of course, I guess that was it. I think that was it. Where there's just like one scene, I guess, where somebody's getting something out of the actual pod or whatever. But it is what it is. All right, Mark. So what do you got?
All right, so they establish in the beginning, it's a fairly important part, that they've been out in space for a long, long time, essentially going where no one's gone before.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden, out on the furthest reaches is this ginormous, starbase full of people that clearly is a massive, massive place. I'm like, so how far out were you if this thing exists out there? Which I thought was a really cool design and take on a space station.
It was.
Oh yeah,
It was pretty cool.
So that just seemed a little odd. Like, did you backtrack a lot, or I don't know. What else did I have? How come Kevin doesn't have to wear pants if everyone else in Starfleet has to? I thought that's just regulation. Make a tiny little pair of pants and put it on. Was that little dude one of the little aliens from the beginning of the movie?
That was the assumption, yeah.
I didn't get a clear look. It seemed smaller than that, but I thought that was funny.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a fun thing. I'm not sure if it was, but I think it's assumed that it was one of the first ones.
I didn't make that connection.
The only other quirk that I had is, and this may tie into what you said about potential stuff being cut from the movie, is they clearly established that there's this massive underground civilization or something under this planet, and virtually nothing lives on the surface.
Yes.
And other than a couple shots of events underground, none of that's dealt with. It doesn't tie into the story at all.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't. So that's definitely like a misstep, and just kind of a continuity problem. And I'm not sure if there could have been. This is another one of those things where it's like it could have been something that was cut or whatever from the movie, but it's definitely not there, so it's definitely an issue. Anything else?
That's all I got.
Not a whole lot of quirks, and some of them are really nitpicky. It seems like people like this movie.
Nitpicky.
All right, so let's get into the likes then. So, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that I freaking loved this movie. I really enjoyed that. I thought that the way they decided to go back to like the original series was pretty cool. And the thing about this movie is it's a lot of the original series, and I said this when we were talking about the trailer, is them going onto a planet, and these actors on a terrible set with crappy aliens. And so this one does that also, but it does it really well. And I think that was just really cool about it. And to me, it felt like Star Trek. It just felt like it is closer than the past two movies. It really felt like is a Star Trek movie, and I really enjoyed it.
I agree.
Yeah, could I just jump in on that just real quick because I think you're right about that. But I think a real issue in the past two movies is, to me, this felt like Captain Kirk for the first time. Like, really, like, this was a good version of Kirk for them to use moving forward. Yes. So I think those two things go hand in hand.
I think so too. It was just a great. You're right. It felt like Kirk. It felt like Star Trek. Everything just. It's like all these past two movies have led up to this one, and it feels like this is the crew. This is Star Trek, and it makes me really excited to see the sequel, because it's like we'll see just them, boldly going and doing their thing. I think that's really cool. I really enjoyed that there was quite a bit of character development in this movie. Like, I really enjoyed this little friendship between Bones and Spock as they're stuck together through the whole movie. It was just like such a great thing, and there was so much like just this little character quirks between the two characters. But not only that, there was these little character things like just the communication between both of them was just so great, and I enjoyed seeing them actually having a moment in the movie where they were sitting down and resting, and then they actually were talking about how he was planning on leaving, and then there was the correlation of Kirk planning on leaving also. So like, even though that didn't really come to like a great climax or whatever in that part of the storyline, it was definitely always there throughout the whole movie, because they kept saying things like, "What would I do without you, Spock?" or whatever, and stuff like that. So it was like a continuation, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the movie. The other thing I have to say is, as ridiculous as it sounds, I just loved, and it was just so fun and awesome how music saves the day in this movie. It's like such a it's like so ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous, but I did not care at all. It was just so cool that I just didn't give a crap. It was the same kind of feeling I had when watching Pacific Rim, where it's like a terribly awesome movie, or
it's the best terrible movie ever made.
Right. And so I got that feeling in that moment of that movie, because it's so ridiculous, but it's like, I don't even care. Let's just blow everybody the hell up with music.
Yeah, and you gotta imagine everyone sitting in that theater is immediately thinking, this is ridiculous.
Yes.
And I freaking love it.
And I freaking love it.
Right.
It was so
great. Like, when they were talking about what their plan was, like, my teeth were grinding together, and then like the second the visual came in, I was just like, God, this is amazing.
And that little line that Bones throws in, he's like, "Oh, is this classical music?"
Oh yeah. That's great, isn't it? It was such a great scene. I mean, you're right. It's the same feeling I had. It's like you know what they're gonna do. You know what their plan is, and it's so ridiculous.
It's like, it can't. But then
the visual effects were just so like, it was just like, oh,
so
this is
freaking fun. It's like, God, rewind it.
Rewind.
Just rewind it. Let's watch that part again.
I truly believe that's just like such a fun part of the movie. I couldn't believe it. The other thing I have to say is Justin Lin. I think I've always thought Justin Lin was actually a decent director, and people have given him crap because he's been working on the Fast and the Furious movies, but he's actually only done like the better ones. And I think that he had actually a lot of fun with this. I think this is the first time he's probably had a budget this big before, and being able to do like computer graphic type stuff. And so there are so many camera angles that he used that were sometimes I thought they were overused, but he was the way he was turning the camera around like throughout this whole movie is like everything's upside down and turning around and resetting itself. It was absolutely crazy. And although sometimes I thought it was overly done, I thought it was really cool in certain scenes that he did. So I just wanted to make sure I made that statement for that. The only other thing I have to say is I enjoyed all the references to the original series. I really enjoyed when they came together and the stuff with Leonard Nimoy, because we all know that he died during production of this movie. And then I really enjoyed that they had like the picture from like the old series from the movies.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff, and just all the they clearly knew what they were doing here. They knew that this movie was going to be closer to a Star Trek movie, and have them all the references to the original cast and everything. I thought was just great, and that's all I have. So, what do you got, Jones?
You know, I think, and we already talked about it, but the swarm in general, I thought the swarm was really cool. Yeah. I thought the entrance for the bad guys was amazing. I think that's probably one of the cooler entrances that you could give a villain.
I'd have to agree.
That whole sequence was just amazing, and it was also amazing to, you know, the chase sequence when they go back to the Enterprise. And, you know, they're running through a set that is basically falling apart and it's on its side. Like, that was just amazing. The visuals in this, the action is stunning.
Yeah, it is.
And, you know, you brought up a good point with McCoy and Spock that there's the story, there's the character development to balance it all out. So I thought the movie was just a home run. All the way around. But what I really like about McCoy and Spock, who I think that relationship was my favorite thing about this movie, is that Carl Urban on his damn Twitter page basically said that anyone shipping those characters needs to use macaque instead of the other one, which is
Spoons.
God, what's the other one? What's the other name for it? Do you know, Mark?
No.
I forgot. But anyway, that's awesome. There's one that's based off of. Yeah, that's based more off of Spock's name, and I love that he put an end to that with a tweet, because that's like something.
It's not Spokoi.
Yeah. I thought that was. Like, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great.
You know, so yeah, I love so much about this movie, and there were visuals that we had never really seen before, and I think Mark brought up a good point about this space station. It just was so cool.
Yeah,
and I love how Up is just, you know, the way that they portray it in space is, you know, whatever you want to be up is up, because that's just how space works.
Yeah, which is one of the things that I was talking about with how Justin Lin was using all his really crazy camera angles. It was just so great.
Yeah.
You know, and as I was watching it, I was really hoping there would be like an anti-gravity fight, and we finally got one at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And so I could have used more of that. You know, I thought it was just really a lot of fun. I'm not sure why that space station only has one central vent system, because it's huge. There should be like dozens of them or something.
You'd think.
You know, that's, you know, again, I guess that's one of those concessions that you have to make. I just couldn't imagine all the air in that place getting filtered through one thing. I would imagine it must smell pretty badly. So yeah, this was. I'm sure there's other stuff I like. So maybe I'll just turn it over to Mark.
All right, Mark.
Well, the first and most important one I have, and you guys both sort of acknowledge it, is like, regardless of everything else, this movie is fun and it felt original.
It did.
It felt like a tribute to old Trek, but unlike the last movie, I didn't feel like I was watching their version of an existing story. This is just a unique story in a very Star Trek universe.
Yep. I agree.
And and this isn't even just these new movies, unlike most of the previous movies, this is not a Captain or Kirk focused only story. He's got his arc, Spock has his arc, McCoy does. Virtually every member of that crew has legitimate screen time and development, maybe with the exception of Uhura. She's in a lot of scenes, she just doesn't necessarily accomplish.
Although the thing that's interesting about that is I feel like she had more screen time than the other two movies.
I just mean as far as like growth or
but it's
portrayal.
weird though, right? It's like yeah, I get what you're saying, but it's like but she did have more screen time, so I'm not sure what's going on with that.
But like I love you look at Sulu and you're like, I see why this guy's eventually gonna be captain of his own ship.
Right? Yeah. Like you get that feeling from him too.
So we should, I hate to jump in here, but so they did something, so there is another and I know that this was one that George Takei had an issue with, but they made Sulu gay in this movie. And I actually kind of liked it, but I liked how they went about doing it. You know, they didn't throw it into your face, because they could have had some weird I was expecting it was going to come up in that scene where like all the crew is fraternizing, and it doesn't come up there.
No, you just see that he has a partner,
right,
and that they have like a kid, and it definitely, the thing that I liked about it was because George Takei is gay, like it just seemed like it was, to me, it was another, reference back to the original cast, and that's what I thought that they were trying to do, and making a little statement at the same time, and I thought that was great.
I know he had an issue with it, but I don't know. I guess I thought it was time, and I think that they handled it appropriately. If that's what you're gonna do.
And I think the news of him having an issue with it came out even it's before the release of the movie. It's handled in such a subtle, not in your face way.
Yeah,
I think it was fine.
So sorry, Mark.
No problem. And if nothing else, I just want more. Like, I can't wait for the next movie.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next movie.
I think the best compliment to this whole movie is there's a bunch of silly stuff, and we know the actors know how to play these characters, and they do it amazingly. The fact that you've got Spock, the emotionless character, chiming in on all these awesome one-liners between him and McCoy that had me laughing out loud, and his great emphasis of horse shit. So funny, and I just come on, hurry up, make the next one, keep them coming.
Yeah, it's just so freaking good what they did with this movie. It's great. You got any other likes overall?
No.
All right, so I guess we're gonna rate it then, huh?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I think it's obvious that we all just really love this movie. I think Justin Lin, I love when this happens, where this movie got some flack because everybody was complaining, this looks like Fast and Furious Star Trek. And I absolutely hated hearing that, because Justin Lin's a capable director anyway. And so, to me, it just ticked me off the whole time. And I really think he shut some people up here. And I think it's to me, I think it's the most fun Star Trek movie I've ever seen. And it's done, and I love all the stuff that it feels like Star Trek. And it's just great. I don't know how they pulled this off, but I'm definitely buy this movie. I've already bought it. I'm gonna buy it when it comes out. I love it. It's great. I just love it.
All right. I'll give it a see it, buy it as well.
All right.
and I'm gonna round it out with the exact same thing. There's nothing to not appreciate.
See it, buy it across
see
the
it,
board.
buy it, sweep for the first time ever.
For the first time ever.
I don't know that we've had 3 on one.
No,
before.
We have not had 3. It's just so good. It's so well done, man. It's they did such a great job with this movie. It is just on point. And like Mark said, it got me excited for another one. Let's do another movie.
Yeah, just do 2 at once.
I'm so glad that they signed on for another one. Let's do it. It was great.
Yeah.
Can we just get to the place where we have a Star Wars and a Star Trek movie every year?
That would be awesome.
those guys would be busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would be.
Great, you know. Yeah, I think Justin Lin should definitely just do the other ones too. You know,
he did a very good job in this, and I like the fact that I feel like he shut some people up, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think the action was just better in this
It's
movie than
just
in the other
so
ones.
Good, so good. All right, so I guess we're gonna go ahead and sign out then, right? If anybody wants to contact us, you can always contact us via our website, halfpastpodcast.com.
Like us on Facebook.
Rate us on iTunes and Google Play.
We're on Stitcher and Libsyn.
Email us at halfpastcast@gmail.com. That's halfpastcast@gmail.com.
Tweet us at halfpastpodcast.
And thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. What do we have for next week? I don't think I have it.
I
on here.
don't know. Mark, do you know what movie comes out next week?
I know in 2 weeks what comes out.
Oh, that's terrible. We're supposed to be professionals. Clearly, the ball was dropped.
Google.com. New movies.
It was clearly dropped. Like, I clearly dropped the ball. No, I got it right
Bourne.
here. Is that
Jason
what it
Bourne.
is?
Damn it, Graham.
Okay.
What's in 2 weeks, Mark?
Suicide
Squad's in 2 weeks.
Okay, so
Jason
we're gonna have another. So we'll have Mark back for that one, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we really want to have you back.
Because hell yeah.
Yeah, we want you back for that
This
one.
Jason Bourne one, I don't know.
We'll see what happens with Jason Bourne.
We'll see what happens.
It might be a good one. We'll see what happens with that one. I think it'll be okay.
I really just want to see Star Trek again.
I know, right? I would love to see Star Trek again. All right, so this is the Half Past Podcast. I'm Graham Ricks.
Jonesy.
Thanks, Mark.
No
Thank
problem,
you,
guys.
Mark.
See you soon.
See ya.
See you next flick.